is the immorality of cutting unemployment benefits now. So I'm a little late to this story, admittedly. However, it's still important to think about what's going on. So you may have heard that many states are concerned about what has been dubbed a labor shortage, right? Many organizations and companies are starting to open back up, but many of their furloughed workers don't want to come in. Partially because the pay that's being offered is paltry, and that's especially true now when workers are expected to put their personal health and well-being on the line for these companies' profits. This is especially true, as I'm sure you've seen, in the restaurant industry and other industries where people work directly with other human beings, specifically in situations where, it might be harder to socially distance or to maintain some, to some type of distance from other people. So mass transit, for example, and things like that, right? So some states in the United States have reacted to this by saying, well, if you're not going to come back to work voluntarily, then we're going to force you back to work. Well, how are they going to force you back to work? You can't just do that, right? Well, you kind of can. And what states have been doing, some states anyway, has been saying, well, clearly the reason that people can afford to stay at home and not work or look for better jobs is because the government is paying them an unemployment insurance. Now, by the way, unemployment insurance already has some unfairness built into it, which is that if you get a job offer, so first of all, you have to be looking for a job the whole time in order for you to maintain your unemployment insurance. And at some level, you have to prove that you are searching actively for a job, which feels incredibly unfair. Some people just need the time to relax and recuperate, but they're not getting that. Additionally, once you do get a job offer after you're supposed to be looking for weeks and weeks and weeks, you have to take it. I repeat, you have to take it. You don't get a choice, because if you don't take it and they report and the company reports to the government that they offered you a job and you didn't take it, guess what? You lose those benefits and you can't get them back. So that's the unfairness that started with this program, which, by the way, is nuts in all sorts of ways. But, another rant for another time. But now there's an additional unfairness being put on because people in some states are realizing that the primary factor which is stopping people from going back to work is the fact that they can afford not to work right now because of these benefits. So these states are saying, well, if they're starving, they'll go work. So they are cutting these benefits prematurely, which is completely immoral. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about why it's so immoral that these benefits are being cut now. And it is especially true in the particular states, what in the US are called red states, ones that are run by Republicans primarily. And how this is, essentially a crime. So say you are looking for a job. Maybe you want to, maybe you don't want to, whatever, right? You're looking for a job because you have to, you're on unemployment, and you're getting a certain amount of money from your state, based on whatever formula they use, and you're getting an additional amount from the government. Perhaps for the first time, you don't feel like you're poor all the time. You actually have enough money to maybe even put a couple $100s away. This is the reality for thousands and thousands of Americans who are feeling now for the first time that even though they used to work all the time, they weren't making enough to live. And now that they're not working, they're finally getting enough money that they can actually start to live a little bit. Not just survive, but thrive, put some money away, think about the future. But and by the way, this is happening now because the companies that these people were working at, weren't paying them well enough for this, right? So many Americans are feeling a boon right now, which I would argue is great and that they should just go on forever. But these are being cut, as I mentioned before. And this is so incredibly immoral because the pandemic isn't over. Like, many people are acting like the pandemic's over and that some places can start to open up, but it's not. Not only do we have the Delta variant, which most people have heard about, we also have the Gamma variant. And countless other variants. This virus, as in, COVID-19 and its various variants, are, they continue to infect people. They continue to kill people. Now, mind you, mostly it's unvaccinated people, but we don't know how long that's going to last either. We have failed as a society, as a globe, to vaccinate enough people to get rid of COVID-19. So essentially, it's going to keep doing what I predicted it was going to do on this show a couple weeks ago, which was keep infecting people and keep getting to a point where it could possibly mutate into something else. And the more mutations it has, the higher chance it is that we are going to end up in a situation where one mutation or variant or what have you beats the vaccines, is better than the vaccines, right? And we'll start to kill people again in large numbers. We'll go back to lockdown. We'll go back to all these other things. So while all this is happening, states are saying, hey, you workers that we said were essential, yeah, you're not so essential. You still are essential, but we don't want to pay you like you're essential. And more than that, we want you to get your ass back to work. So these people are going to have to, unfortunately, go back to risking their lives day in and day out for jobs that they definitely don't want to be in, because someone else at another level decided, well, it's time, right? And what are they basing that off of? Well, the economy is shrinking and then some stuff's starting to open up, so we need workers. And we need them to work for slave wages in this country again. And workers are refusing to go back. So the logical solution seems to be to starve them out. Which, and I know I'm using harsh terms, but because what's going on is harsh. Truthfully, they're saying, we are just going to make it so that you run out of money, and once you run out of money, you'll have to come to us again to get money, and the only way for you to do that is to work these types of jobs, where you end up in situations where your life is on the line. Excuse me. Sorry about that. So you're going to be working in a way that puts your life on the line for someone else. And they're not paying you extra for that, right? We're not talking about companies offering hazard pay, offering even living wages. But there is a concerted effort by politicians to say, regardless of how safe you feel, regardless of whether you're vaccinated or not, regardless of whether you're enjoying the time that you don't have to work, we don't care because we have to make money, okay? We have to grow because capitalism demands growth from everything, right? You gotta just grow and take it, strip and resource, right? Strip these resources from people. We have to make profits and profits and profits and profits and profits. And we can't do that without workers that we can pay nothing or close to nothing. And by the way, like I said earlier, all this is going on while there's a pandemic. All this is going on while you're asking those same workers who you're still not going to pay well, do this for, the same paltry wage we wanted to pay you before or less, right? There are reports of people who are losing their seniority that they had back when they were working, that they're being treated like they're new employees, that their wages are actually going down. But they cannot withhold their labor for the system and fight for better rights because essentially they're going to run out of money. And they're going to have to go back to some situation where they're selling their labor for money because we still need to eat. We still need to pay rent. And although evictions in many places are still not allowed, there have been reports of landlords who are getting around the eviction bans, who are pre-filing evictions and just waiting for the courts to open up again, so that they can evict people as soon as possible. The system is working against these people, these workers who, by the way, and I shall remind you again, are generating all of the wealth for the system, right? So there's a squeeze on what were up until recently called essential workers who are supposed to be praised and paid well and rewarded, but they're not being rewarded. They're being seen as chattel in this system that needs to generate as much profit for a small group of people as possible. Now, this may not apply to every small business, every small restaurant, but the truth is these small business owners also need to make money, right? So because they had to close down their business, they also had to put themselves in a situation where their ass is on the line because they don't have savings either, okay? The small business class, the petite bourgeoisie, the petty bourgeoisie, so the petite bourgeoisie, they don't have, in our system now, they don't have a ton of savings either. They're not living high on the hog. Oftentimes, they're also just making things neat too. So even if it's not malicious on their part, they need to find a way to keep the lights on, and they do that by, hiring back workers, by going back into service, by reopening up, even if it's not safe, because the system demands more money over and over again, right? It demands money be extracted from us and given to the capitalist class. And this upward transfer of wealth just continues and continues. And, forcing people back into that, giving people no choice, is just completely immoral. Capitalism was supposed to allow us to sell our labor in a way that was supposed to be beneficial to us, that would allow us to earn well. The saying always goes, right? If you work hard and do what you're supposed to, you'll live well and you'll retire well. But that hasn't been true for decades. We're living in a fantasy that doesn't work. The system has taken its time, but it has done what it was always intended to do, just like every system before it. Funnel money to those who are already rich and already powerful. Take it from the rest of us and force us to keep coming back to a table we don't want to eat or work at. So for those of you who are suffering because your benefits are being cut and you're being forced back to work jobs you don't want to work, solidarity with you. I wish it wasn't this way. And to the legislators out there who think it's a good idea to starve people out of their homes to work jobs that could kill them, fuck you. Fuck each and every one of you. I hope that you burn in whatever version of the bad place, bad afterlife that you believe in, because you are literally creating policies that will get people killed, possibly thousands of people. And you're doing it so that the people who fund your campaigns can make an extra buck. And that's sick. It's gross. Okay? It's completely immoral. We should not be in a situation where this should even be possible. They should have a universal basic income. We should have structures in place so that if people don't want to work, they don't have to. If the economy needs to shut down for a little bit of time, it can. We have ways to make this happen. Stop pretending like we don't. We could have gotten rid of this pandemic, but people had to make money. So that's the direction we went in. It's gross.